And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to His purpose. My name's Wes Jackson. I'm 38 years old. Earliest memory of Christmas is at a house we lived in downtown Spartanburg. I remember the morning of opening the presents, and some salmon stew, for some reason, is tradition on Christmas Eve.
Johnny, AKA Poppy Jackson, and my wife, Julie, AKA Juju.
I wanted always to have everything that Christmas was supposed to be. They can tell you have boxes and boxes of decor, and every room's decorated. We worked hard for it to be that way.
When I was 8 is when I went down front and received Christ in my life.
Our hope was that they would embrace the walk with Jesus and be followers of Christ, to be a man of God, a husband, a father that walks in that daily relationship. That was our hope.
In high school, basketball was number one to me. That's all I did all the time. We went and visited Liberty, me and my parents, and when we went and got on campus, I felt His presence there. And as soon as I got there, I had not drank, I had not ever smoked a cigarette or anything before, and within 6 months of the first drink, I'm an alcohol problem. And the sexual immorality that goes with all that was also as big a problem. I decided that I wasn't going to be at Liberty anymore. I was going to do what I wanted my way, so I came home to go to USC Upstate and play basketball was the goal.
Coming home from there and just the anxiety of that transition, and then trying to find His path from that point forward was the beginning, of just not knowing what was going to be next.
I got a job at Wild Wing, and it didn't take long with the job at Wild Wing to get invited to partying and drinking and whatnot. But I could still keep up the lie that I'm still going to school, because I'd leave all day. I could leave all day like I'm going to school and run around all day, smoking weed, finding as much powder as I could. It took a solid year of that till I started stealing things. I didn't have the money anymore, till I eventually got arrested, convicted when I was 23, breaking in to my childhood church. I broke in the middle of the night and stole a bunch of money. And Dad called me, came picked me up, and we went to the police department, and I turned myself in. I had become a convicted felon. I think it's probably a year and a half till I realized that, I need to go back to rehab again. So I went back, finished, came out clean, came out sober, got a job, and while I was waiting tables at another restaurant is when I met Samantha.
The first time we met, I was eating dinner with my aunt in Dimitri's, and Wesley was working there.
I thought she was hot. Just right off the rip. When I saw her, she was sitting at the bar with her aunt. And when I saw her sitting there, I remember thinking, dang, she's kind of hot.
So mine and Wesley's first date was pretty comical. We decided to meet at the 7-Eleven, and then we were gonna go to Starbucks in Greer and have coffee. So I hopped in the car with him, and as we're driving, he said, "I can't believe this is happening." And I was like, "Oh no, what is it?" Well, we ran out of gas in front of Walmart.
And I put my hand out, and she grabbed my hand, and we ran across 29 to get to the gas station. And so, got gas, eventually made it to Starbucks.
And we shared a cup of coffee.
So we dated for about 18 months. I was clean and sober the entire time, and I proposed, and we eventually got married in 2 years.
Our wedding day was full of excitement. I was just excited. I was ready to spend the day with our family. I know he was full of nerves, but it was a great time.
Brody danced his heart out throughout the entire reception. It was a wonderful day, yeah.
Having Marley, our first child, together was fantastic. He was there every step of the way, and I could see the joy in the hospital of just how excited and already protective he was. And then when we came home, things were great. You know, we had our little family of 4, and everything seemed so wonderful, and it was.
So after Marley was born, drinking a little bit at night and going to bed, to the point that I'm taking in a pint between 8 at night to 2 in the morning kind of thing. And this is on work days, and getting back up and going. And when I found those drugs and relapsed on what my favorite thing was, which was pain pills at that time.
The first time I knew that things were bad is I met him at the back of his car, where he was putting together his stuff that he was going to take.
Very quickly, 6 months later, now in a worse place.
He would be asleep most of the days, and then he would get up at night and romp around in the streets and make the poor choices that he was.
With the urging of my father and my mother, me being a father and a husband at the time, was that you need to cold turkey and detox off this stuff and go back to rehab. Again, for the 3rd time. Spiritually, I'm not chasing the Lord. We're not going to church. Our house is not at all centered around Christ.
So we would go visit him on Saturdays, and we'd hang out for a few hours, and then we would go home and do our normal Monday through Friday life. Several years of him being sober, and he had gotten a job working in Colombia, so he was traveling constantly. And there were certain things that he was doing instead of coming home, and I got very weary of it. And about that time, COVID happened, and me and the kids were stuck at home 24/7, and he was still working. But then the conversations with him got stranger and stranger, and then Thanksgiving rolled around that year. And I finally brought myself to ask him what he was doing. And that's when things fell apart.
There was a certain paycheck that I got that was the most to that date, and while I was at that job, it was a pretty big pay. And I can remember it like it was yesterday that I got the money from the bank, went and cashed that pretty big check, and I sat in my car with the stack of cash, and I was supposed to be going home, heading back home from Columbia. And I remember in that moment deciding, you know what, I want to do me, and spent that entire amount of money over the weekend. So I have 3 overdoses. I also have 6 car wrecks and lose that job, get fired from that job. And now I find myself back in Spartanburg, huge drug problem, and a family in tow of it all.
We celebrated Thanksgiving, and I knew I needed to ask him some hard questions. I knew that it wasn't just him not being sober this time. I knew it was him not being faithful too. He asked me not to tell anyone, and I agreed to protect our kids and to protect him. And so I I took all of it. I took all the hurts. And then there was a day that me and the kids were out with some friends, just trying to be normal. And he called me in a panic from work, and I got off the phone with him, and I called his dad. And I said, you need to know that Wesley is not sober, and he has not been for about 6 months. And I've covered for him, but I can't keep doing that.
I began stealing everything I can to pay for my addiction. I'd actually stolen a couple trailers, and Spartanburg County Auto Theft Division had set me up to come and sell them the stolen trailer. Pulled around the back of the building, and they came from every direction, it felt like, and had me completely blocked in. Well, I'm looking at a 5 to 7 year prison sentence. It starts to really weigh on me that Tucker, Marley, and Brody don't know any of this. I know Sam's protecting them by not telling them what's going on. So as far as they're aware, I've just disappeared on them. And at this point, it's been a couple months that I've been gone. I remember many times thinking, I've done it now, my life's over. My kids are gonna be without me. Sam's definitely leaving me. I sure would at this point. So I'm gonna lose my wife. My parents aren't talking to me. No one's answering the phone. So I'm alone.
I had to come to grips with, I'm not his Savior. I'm not going to be able to fix him. It was between him and God.
I'm laying on that bunk, and I'm facing the concrete wall, the cinder block wall. And the reason I'm turned towards the wall is because tears are streaming down my face. This is, no doubt, emotionally and spiritually, I am completely done and broken and alone, and I feel alone. I cry out to the Lord, and the words that I'm saying are not at all Christianese, and they're not any of the prayers I've ever prayed in my life in front of anybody. I'm just completely distraught with where I am and where I'm going. When I left Liberty, God was with me. When I began to use and party, God was with me. After I got arrested the first time, God was still with me. When I OD'd, God was with me. When I was locked up, He was still with me. A sudden rush of warmth and joy and comfort overtake me. It hits me right in my chest and overtakes my entire body. And very clearly, as I feel that, I know this feeling because I've felt it at the childhood Christmases and all the other Christmases with family when I'm sober, when I was a child and growing up. I know this feeling of comfort and joy, but I'm in jail. I shouldn't be feeling that right now. And the very next words that are very clear in my mind are chase me. Don't try to fix anything. Don't try to address your family. Don't try to address the law. Don't try to do anything. Just come to me. Come home to me. And chase me and stay with me and don't leave me again. From that moment, I found a Bible. I found a book in there. It was a theological book, And I just started having time with the Lord and reading. And I didn't understand a lot of things, whatever. But I'm trying to stay as close to Him as possible.
And then there was a day where he called and he said, I don't need you to come get me. I just want to know if you will chase after God with me. And I sat quietly. I didn't know how to answer it because I didn't know how true he was with his statement, with his question. And then he said, you don't have to answer it right now, but I have to go. I love you.
I think, when he told us finally about the change and how the Lord had met him there, for me, it was obvious.
And then the next time I talked to him, it wasn't, hey, will you get me out? It was, this is what I'm reading, and I know God's with me, and He's with you. And that's when I knew he was changing.
I am spared a prison sentence and given probation again for 5 years. I know in that moment what has just happened. I'm well aware that God's moving as long as I stay close to Him and keep chasing Him. It doesn't mean there's not going to be struggles and consequences for the decisions I had made and the lies I had told.
The first few days of Wesley being back home and settling back into life was more just establishing some ground rules. And one of his rules was, we're going to find a church. And we're going to do this as a family.
I think I got home on a Sunday, and we were at 4 Points the very next Sunday. My wonderful cousin Andrew, we were discussing a few churches, and Andrew told us, said, hey man, come check 4 Points out. You need to hear Pastor Russ preach, and just come check us out. And so we did. And that Sunday's sermon, Russ so happened to make all the men in the room that were fathers and husbands stand up in place. He drove a challenge into us fathers and husbands in there that shook me to the core. It was Baptism Sunday, and they had the baptistry up there. So Russ gets on up there, and he says, hey, we don't have anybody to get baptized today, so if anybody be interested and wants to get baptized, feels led right now, just go to the back there, and we'll get you changed and you can get baptized. In that moment, I'm standing with me, Sam, and Brody. So I take off and get changed. And I'm thinking I'm going up to get baptized. I'm going to get baptized. And I think I've come through the curtain, and I'm walking up to the bathtub, and I turn around to see Sam come through that curtain to be baptized with me. And you think about everything in this story, and all the hell, and all the fights, and all the arrests, and all the absolutely horrible, atrocious things, leading to the point that me and Sam are now getting baptized together. Just 3 months after I said, will you chase Christ with me?
We decided to host a group. We were like, we have no idea what we're doing, but let's sign up for it, and hope that people show up. And they did. We had a wonderful group of people who showed up for that first one. And then we were invited to join another community group. It was a Friday night chaos, but we went unsure of what was going to happen, and we do life together, and it's been fantastic to find that.
Before I met His Grace in that cell, the level of disobedient, selfish, boy I was. Because I was no man. I was a selfish little boy, chasing after him and chasing after Jesus Christ's teachings and what his teachings are is the only thing that's brought me to where I am now. As Russ challenged that day to step up as men and lead your home, that starts with being obedient. I always thought it was sacrifice first. And as a man, sacrifice time and effort and work and all those things. And what God has shown me, the biggest lesson is to be obedient first and obey him. And by obeying his teachings and chasing him, he has brought our marriage and our family to a place that neither one of us saw as a possibility with me sober. Sober is one thing, but obedient to the Lord is a whole nother.
Through most of my life, chasing after God was just stepping my toe in. Somewhat knowing who he was, but not ever truly pursuing him. And it's only through God's love and mercy did I hear him say, "Be still. This is the man that you prayed for. I never promised that it would be easy, but be still." And I was obedient, and I listened. And I finally chose to jump in and pursue God. And through that, through his mercy and love for my husband, and love for me and our family was able to be restored. Our marriage, we work on it every day, but it's great. And it's only after jumping in. Couldn't do this with just kind of knowing him. So that's our victory.
Now that we've made it through all of that, God is still with us.